Welcome to the Apex Racing TV Weekly Roundup podcast, your surefire way of keeping up to date with all of Apex Racing TV's broadcasted series. This week, we discuss the Formula 3.5 Championship, the Ricmotech GT Challenge, the Dinners with Racers Continental Cup, and the ARL Touring Car and American GT Championships. So without further ado, let's jump into the action with your hosts Sam Fitzpatrick and Marco Barbanera. Welcome back, Marco, to another episode of the Apex Racing TV Weekly Roundup podcast, and it's week 2 of this iRacing season. So we're getting to know these championships a little bit better, but whilst it's the start of the iRacing season, it's still kind of the end of the league seasons, and we're going to discuss at least one championship today, which has come to a close, and a few championships which are getting back into the swing of things.
Absolutely, yeah. Sam, it's getting closer and closer to Christmas time. I don't know if our good friends at home will listen to this before or after Christmas, but in any case, Merry Christmas to everyone, and hopefully you are enjoying the holidays as much as we are doing. So, like you were saying, most of the leagues are, sensibly in a little bit of a break, but the official series don't stop, and thankfully this season we are covering quite a bit of them, more than in the past, especially in the weekend. So yeah, we have plenty of stuff to talk about, and of course a couple of juicy updates from iRacing in the official first patch of the 2020 Season 1 build.
Yes. So, of course, when this comes out will be completely dependent on when we can be bothered to edit it, but we'll try to get it out nice and quickly. Hope you're listening early on in the week before Christmas, of course. First up, we'll talk about the Ricmotech GT Challenge. It was the season finale, and it's been a fantastic championship. GTE and GT3 cars, of course. Season finale hosted at Road America. In terms of the titles for the drivers, it was already decided. ARL winning the GTLM title. Not that many wins for him compared to, he has been absolutely dominant in past leagues, but I think only got what was going into the final round with 3 wins out of 6, which for Aero, which it isn't absolutely amazing, but like I said, won it with a round to spare, so mega consistent, only finished off the podium one time in the season. And Ian Gagnon Renault won the GTD title. So he was already quite far ahead, a fantastic points score for Ian, and won pretty much every round, I think, apart from the first 2. So fantastic seasons put together by those guys, Marco, and it was nice to see them finish it off with another win in their respective classes.
Yeah, fitting end to their respective seasons, and what better scenario than Road America, of course, to bring home and to put an end to the season. Of course, it is you talk about GTD and GTLM, which reminds me that the 24 hours of Daytona is really close, just around the corner. The guys at Ricmotech finish another fantastic season between this series and the Sports Car Challenge, which I had the pleasure to commentate on a couple of times, despite the late night hours for us in Europe. And it's great to see big numbers even in the end. This is one of the few series where we can say that the numbers are good, or very good, even at the end of the season, with the titles already being given out. Also, I remember that the GT Challenge, if I'm not mistaken, had a little bit of a rocky start when it first debuted in the on the extreme motorsport portfolio of leagues, but now it has a very good participation, and nice to see another good season come to an end.
Yeah, another great season from Ricmotech then. In terms of what happened in the race, ARL, shockingly, he got pole position. Never seen that before. He got pole position in the GTLM class. He got a good start. Laster and Dam were in second and third. I think they got... Oh, sorry, apologies. Leicester and Dam were second and third in the championship going into that final round. Dam actually fell from second place to fourth place on the start. Really tricky start at Road America. Always fun because if you can't get the perfect launch, then you're just going to have that entire, odd drivers just stream straight past you, such as the run down to turn one. So it was a bit unfortunate for Mike Dam. He fell down to fourth place. Just other notes from the race, Schwenke and Chan made quite a big contact when fighting for fifth place early on in the race. I think Chan just understeered a little bit into Schwenke. It's an unusual turn 5 round there, which is actually the third corner on the circuit. Of course, with the curve as well, getting back onto the circuit. A bit of contact between the two of them, and it, I think, sent Schwenke out of the race. Also, Patton spun from fourth place at the last corner. He was under a little bit of pressure from another driver, but spun from fourth place, and he caused enough damage to retire from the event. That corner would be issue for other drivers later on. All the drivers pretty much pitted at halfway. The GTG is going a little bit further, and then at the end of the race in the top 10, got a little bit chaotic because Ruddock crashed at the last corner once again, pretty much the exact same mistake, running wide at the final corner, losing control of the car and smashing it into the wall. That was the end of his day. And also, Bobby Childs made contact with a GTD car when lapping him, and it was a stonewall drive-through penalty. And such is the length of the pit lane at Road America, it sent him way back. So it cost him, I think, an 8th place finish. So in the end, it was Aeronom winning out from Caden Bine and Mike Dam. Then in the GTDs, it was Ian Gagnon, Renault, and Brandon Whitworth and Brendan Misler rounding out the podium in that class. But yeah, I mean, going into next season, Marco, we've got about a month off. It is going to be mega difficult to beat Nom and Gagnon Renault. Do you think there might be any changes for Gagnon Renault? I mean, the dream would be him versus Nom, because you kind of think at the moment those two are the only two drivers who can challenge one another. It'd be fantastic if maybe Gagnon Renault made the step up, or maybe even took the step down. Did Nom?
Yeah, of course, it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for the driver of the two, if they decide to stay in, if they move to the same class, one or the other will need to adapt. Of course, these drivers don't need a lot of time to adapt. The difference, of course, as we know, between GT and GT3 is mainly the absence of ABS on GT cars, but also the GT cars tend to have a bit more downforce, especially this new generation of GT cars with that massive diffuser that they have in the back. So it could certainly be a nice thing to look forward to. We, of course, we will know more about it in the coming days and weeks while the driver use the holidays to ponder on their future.
Yes, so it'll be fascinating to see if anything changes with that. But we do think that the championship will pretty much stay the same. Of course, we've also got the sports car championship as well, Marco. And yeah, we'll hopefully cover the other series a lot more next season, because we really haven't done it a whole lot of justice, because they've got two different series, the Sports Car Challenge and the GT Challenge. They run alternate weeks, and we haven't covered the Sports Car Challenge all season. So next season, that should be very good. And yeah, both those leagues, as we were saying earlier on, Marco, really still thriving.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the Sports Car Challenge because, of course, I talked about this in the past, but this is the first time following us. Basically, what they are trying to do is mimicking the GT side of competition of the real life IMSA series. In this series, the GT Challenge, we have GTD, which is the GT3 of the IMSA series in the main series, and the GT Le Mans, which is the GT. In the Sports Car Challenge, that is basically, it has been going on for many years, that series. It basically follows what was the format up until a couple of years ago of the what was once called the Continental Sports Car Challenge, which now is called the Michelin Pilot Challenge in real life. And of course, way back when you had these two categories, the Grand Sport and the Street Tuner, in which you had Mustangs, you had uh, let me think if I can remember which other cars they had. They had these big, cars that you could buy from the dealership basically and tune them to race into these grand sport categories. And then the street tuner was they had cars like the MX-5. It was full of MX-5s there. So, but now in recent years the series has changed, and as most of you know, now the tire has changed. Instead of having Continental, we have Michelin as the title sponsor in real life, but also Grand Sport now is a GT4 only category, and of course, Street Tuner now is the TCR category. So we have one, we are still waiting on the other, so we will see if they are going to wait a bit to start the new season in order to have like a true representation of what really is the sports car challenge in real life right now. But on the other end, of course, the drivers love the Mustang and the drivers love the MX-5 in the sports car challenge. So it would be a bit of a pity to lose those two cars, especially since the Mustang is not a car that you see all that often in a broadcasted fashion on iRacing. So I think it's one of the last few leagues to have it as the main car or a regular car for their series. So we'll see. We'll see. Certainly, maybe to throw also a little bit of a curveball to the drivers, or to maybe try to change a little bit, shake up the order. It could be very nice if they could switch to the new alignment of the Sports Car Challenge of the real life one with GT4, so the Cayman when it comes out, and the Audi TCR for the Street Tuner in place of the MX-5.
Yeah, it would be fascinating to see if they do wait for that. Of course, you can pretty much bank on the GT4 car coming out for the next build. It was said to release in winter, and you'd assume that it's pretty much ready already, but yeah, not being released quite yet. So maybe worth waiting a little bit, or maybe just having a short season, perhaps to the end of season one could be a smart idea. We'll keep an eye out on what they do there. Just a final word, Marco, because I always find this whenever I'm watching the Ricmotech GT Challenge, and it's the weirdest thing, I think. They have adverts, which I think are really cool, and for some sorts of reason, I just have like a really warm feeling whenever we come back from adverts, because it's going back to like ITV, which of course is the used to host F1, used to broadcast F1, and used to always have adverts, and then it would come back, and for some sort of reason, I get flashbacks to that of me being 7 years old. I'm not too nostalgic, but I know I don't know if you have any similar feelings to that, to old days, because of course you now have Sky F1 as well, and it's non-stop coverage.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I actually covered this series as a broadcaster, which was a few weeks ago, actually it was a sort of a new challenge for me, first of all, to, you know, it is a fine art of knowing when to throw the commercial in. Thankfully, I had Jonathan Simon, our colleague, on my side, and he's been a regular for the sports car series, and then he told me basically the right time to go to adverts, no? The guys that regularly do the Ricmotech, of course, Tyler, Maxon, especially when he's behind the cameras, has created a beautiful side-by-side, one side the race, one side the commercial, and for the life of me, I spent an entire evening trying to get that same configuration, and I failed miserably. So when I did the race a couple of weeks ago, I sent the commercial full screen, and it's also very nice because dare I say, it almost looks like you are, not a pretend commentator, but a real one,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
You spend a commercial break talking to your colleague with your microphone hopefully not open, and talk about the race so far, talk about what you want to do when you come back, and those ads are also really really cool. So big thumbs up for. I actually was talking to my colleagues of the Italian NASCAR Championship, where I am just a simple commentator. I don't do the broadcasting side of that. But I said basically, why don't we start, selling advertising space for the cautions? It's
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have from 5 to 10 cautions each race. Last race I think we had 19 cautions at Martinsville, and even if it's like €5 per caution for the commercial break, at the end of the night you will be counting your money, and also it's a nice way for the commentators to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, good idea. I mean, but we take a lot of effort at Apex Racing 2 to make the most realistic coverage possible, and yet just an ad break just makes it look more realistic. It's very strange that, but we will be, if anyone wants to put any ads up, we charge £100 per 30 seconds. So gets your offers in straight away for those hundreds of viewers that we get, of course. But certainly that is the Ricmotech GT challenge. Thanks to all the guys for organizing that. Thanks to everyone who's, of course, partaken in it, including Marco and particularly Tyler Maxson and Austin Knight as well, who have kind of taken the reins in recent weeks, done a very good job. And that season will be coming back in about a month's time. So if you're American, or if you stay up late in Europe, or maybe you want to race in the afternoon, if you're Australian, certainly do sign up to that championship. It would be certainly a very good investment time. Some of the best racing we get on the channel. So, second, we will talk about, what are we going to talk? We'll talk about an official series, and I think we will talk about the Formula 3.5 Championship. Marco, you were covering this one once again. I was merely a bystander. You watched all the action. So yeah, how was it around there at Laguna Seca?
Well, it was everything that I expected, because the track proved to be incredibly tough. You can sense that the whoever did the schedule, I don't know if iRacing themselves, sorry, or the community leaders, they knew that it was a tricky race. It's you know when the green flag drops at 7:15 in the morning, you know that they want the track to be as cool as possible. Despite this, it really put the drivers, especially in the first half of the race, on a very tricky conditions. There were, especially in the, I'd say, first 10 laps, tons of spins, tons of drivers, locking their brakes or losing traction when coming out of the slower corners of the racetrack. But then the race settled, and we had a very nice battle at the front where the two leaders never really passed each other. In fact, the race winner led the entirety of the race. But at the same time, it was so nice to see, especially having the privilege to be in behind the cameras like I did. So I always have one eye on the race, but also the other eye, like a chameleon. I'm looking at the timing screen, and it was beautiful to see them trading fast laps. Of course, I'm talking about race winner Dominic Gadermeyer and second place and championship leader Tim Delisle, winner of round one at Monza. One lap, one of them was doing the fastest lap of the race. The other lap, the other was answering. Back and forth, back and forth. It was and the gap ebbed and flowed, ebbed and flowed. In the end, Gadermeyer was able to repel every attack from Delisle and bring home the race victory. But on the other hand, the fact that we were racing so early in the day, there were some amazing shots that we were able to get. First of all, from the beautiful camera pack for the track and the car. Wonder who did them.
I wonder.
But
Clearly
but
very
all,
talented.
yeah, and the sun, of course, being so low and just getting up behind the horizon, really made for some stunning views. And we had some fantastic battles up and down the field, especially in the top 10, with drivers like Samborski, Ilbrink, Olson, who was basically if I remember correctly, third around, I'd say, in the first quarter of the race, and then had to make a comeback effort. No, it was a beautiful race, much different, of course, than the race we've had in Monza, because the track characteristics are completely different. But another slam dunk of a race for this series, who provides to be absolutely exciting everywhere we go. And the viewers, there were a lot of them. Right now, if you go to the iRacing Esports Network, the broadcast has 1,060 viewers, which is absolutely astonishing, not even 24 hours after the fact. I'd say this series is rapidly growing on me. Of course, you know, I'm still a bit sad about and a bit burned by what happened when the car got first launched. So to see now the car thrive in its niche, but thrive nonetheless, it's absolutely a joy. And honestly, I cannot wait for the next race, which is coming, of course, next Friday and next Saturday. Apologies, which is going to be another. I think another. Especially, everyone is on holiday, more or less. Everyone is on vacation, so I'm expecting even bigger numbers. I really need to get to work my safety rating up. As by the way, the moment I was trying to go through some data and statistics, the iRacing website is down. So
Issues for we're recording this at 9 o'clock on Saturday. I'm sure. Oh, sorry, on Sunday. I'm sure this moment is stuff of legends already on the iRacing forums, because apparently no one can register for races at 9 o'clock, so they've taken it down, it seems, and now we can't look at results. So thanks for that, iRacing. I mean, we could have recorded this earlier on, to be honest, but no. I thought it was a really good race. I watched the second half of it, and it felt very much like an F1 race. Because it was you had a bit of DRS, although to be fair, they were kind of just using DRS at exactly the same time, so it wasn't too much of an advantage. But it was a case of the turbulent air being very prominent. They were really evenly matched for Gadamaya and Delisle, and it literally came down to one opportunity, Marco, I saw Tim have, where he got to within about 0.2 of a second going into turn one. Gadamaya had to go defensive, and Delisle just ran a bit wide and pretty much went from quarter of a second behind to 0.6 of a second behind. And from that point onwards, it was over. But I kind of find it weird. I really like these tight, twisty circuits where it's difficult to overtake, because it's incredible to watch that second place driver find a way to get past tracks like this and Belle, Mid-Ohio, perhaps, kind of these tight, twisty circuits. And you have proper racing on bats rather than like Monza, where it's just a slipstream battle and it's easy to overtake. So yeah, I thought it was an absolutely terrific race at Laguna Seca. I think of course, you talk about the Skippy going to large circuits, and you think the Skippy of all cars really shouldn't go to large circuits. But even these larger cars, which would fit round large circuits, I still think these kind of smaller club circuits are still really good, because it tests that racecraft element of the drivers. So, I mean, being on these short, tight circuits.
And with the big grid we had, I think we had 22 drivers, if I'm not mistaken. We had, of course, several lapped cars who also, I have to say, basically, I cannot remember a single moment where a lapped car proved to be, a roadblock to the lead lap guys. But still, you could see, especially, Gadermeyer was very good in traffic. He was able to extend his lead, sometimes even up to 2.5 seconds, thanks to the traffic. So this, usually when you are the first driver coming through, you are basically opening the way for the driver following you to move through the traffic. But that was not the case. He was very, 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 very good. And in the end, I think everyone was recognizing him in the post-race interviews as having a fantastic race and coming home the deserved winner. So congratulations to him for this great victory. And of course, next week we will be around Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which will provide, I think, another Monza-like race for these drivers. with this start and stop chicane nature, and especially I'm already smiling, thinking about that super long straight from the hairpin to the final chicane, and to see this. I'm already imagining these guys 2-3 wide, moving left and right, using the slipstream, trying to make the pass.
Yeah, that's going to be an awesome race. I mean, Montreal is, in my opinion, possibly the best circuit in the world. I think it's certainly up there as a driver's circuit. I think it is absolutely exceptional. So fantastic that these cars will be going around that, and will be tricky with those big curves in these cars, very low to the ground. I think errors will be of plenty. So certainly do recommend checking that out next Saturday evening. So, iRacing news. I was going to look at the release notes for the patch. Guess what? We can't, because iRacing is down, of course.
But I can.
However, the thing that I saw mainly above all else was AI for the MX-5. I haven't tested it out yet. As far as I've seen on the forums, hasn't been that much talk on it. Just considering that it's quite a big change, because one, it's kind of a bit of a sign that actually iRacing may have a few of these cars ready to go almost. And also these AI cars may well be released uh, mid-season, which is fantastic, rather than being all loaded at the end of a season. It'd be much better if they were released continuously. But Mike, I'm sure you've tried it out, and how is the AI, and what are your opinions on the MX-5 getting it?
First of all, before we start, is that thing that you were saying of people not being able to register to races, or were you making it up? Because
No, people. Yeah, I saw a forum.
okay, because a friend of mine, which we'll talk about later, was trying to sign up for a race just before I jumped in to do the podcast, and basically he signed up for the race. Okay, the session started, but it was not starting for. It was not giving the drivers the join session button, so he was just sitting there waiting for the session to open. So yeah, especially Sunday night, best moment of the day to have these problems. When I guess the iRacing offices are mostly empty. But
I've never seen this issue before though for them, apart
uh,
from like every special event. But usually these official states go without too bad. But no, not so.
I had one when I signed up for a Le Mans Series race, and which usually starts at the top of the hour, and the server opened at point 30, so half an hour later. By which
Oh well.
point most people gave up, and I think I gained around 100 I rating by just doing a couple of laps and parking the car, because there were
Did you
like
win?
no, there were like 3 people. I had no chance. I was in the LMP1. I just
Oh,
wanted
okay.
to have a fun race. But basically, I finished third out of, let's say, 10, because only 3 guys showed up in the class, and so I parked the car and get the nice points. Back to AI. Yes, so happy to have it on the MX-5, especially because it's a car I like a little bit more than the Porsche. And of course, now we can have the all beautiful multi-class racing, which I already tried, of course, and it's nice to see that the behavior in traffic is more or less good. It can happen sometimes, especially at the smaller tracks like Lime Rock, that uh, maybe, let's say, there are two Porsches fighting for position. They approach a group of MX-5s, and one of them, it's almost like one of them needs to get in the fast lane and pass the slower cars, and the other inevitably gets stuck behind the big group, and in the end it tends to losing 2 3 seconds. But these are little kinks that will certainly be addressed. I have to say the AI works fantastic. The way that you can customize your roster, etc. It's absolutely great. And it's I I don't want to sound too optimistic, but having the chance to race against the AI in this couple of weeks with the Porsche car really gave me a level of understanding of the car that I didn't have in the past. So I it could be completely a random thing, but maybe not. The fact that, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, I just came from finishing in 6th in a Porsche Cup race with, basically out of 21 in Detroit, a very tough track, and I wasn't fast, but I was much more confident in the way that I could know what the car was about to do when I did certain things, because I spent these past 2 weeks, running around a lot with my Porsche against the AA driver. So in that regard, big thumbs up for iRacing. Of course, we are still waiting for Oval Racing, which, if you remember, has been accidentally released when the patch came out. Sorry, when the update the new build came out, and then removed. And also, flat tires have now been introduced to the portfolio of the mechanical black flags. I can tell you, maybe we will talk about this just for a moment later, that even if you have damage off, you can still blow a tire. I saw that happen.
Okay.
Yes. To be fair, to achieve that effect, we needed to do a mixed class HPD and Legends car race at Monza Oval to achieve this effect, and the poor guy in the Legends car had to be punted, I think 30 meters in the air and then fall down to have the puncture, but it did happen. It did happen. So it's something you have to be aware of. It can happen. Maybe again at the end of this little bit on iRacing, we will talk about the dinner with racers Continental Tire Cup, who came to an end on Tuesday. Apart from that, a little bit of fixes here and there, especially on the damage model. A little bit of changes on the balance of performance in GT3. Of course, now, due to the Pro Series being over, the B-class NASCARs are getting the new tire model, and a little bit of changes to the racetracks. Cosmetic changes, nothing much. But all in all, of course, the big thing is the new update to the AI and the MX-5 coming to the service. So if I can just very quickly talk about this dinner with racers, of course, Continental Tire Cup, which you had the pleasure to commentate on in the past.
I did.
And
we
also
got into the not top 10 highlights at number 2, which you're very pleased about.
Exactly. So they had a last chance race on Monday night, the night between Monday and Tuesday in Europe, which was the ski pist at Indianapolis with damage on. So we enjoyed a couple of absolutely smashing crashes. And then 24 hours later at Monza Oval, just like I was saying, multi-class race with the HPDs and the Legends car. In the HPDs, there were the championship contenders. It was a winner-take-all race. And in the Legends car, we had an array of professional drivers, including, of course, Tommy Milner, who was the eventual winner, Tommy Kendall, legendary now commentator and racer of prototype series in the 80s and 90s, until he had a massive crash at the Glen, which I don't think if it ended his career, but certainly he still has he's still not walking straight after all these years. But super cool guy and fantastic commentator. We also had Ryan Lewis. We had Jordan Taylor, who unfortunately, everyone is human, suffered from disconnection during the race, and of course defending the flag of Italy in Monza, Ferrari factory driver Alessandro Balzan. So in the end, it was Tommy Milner who won the race for the pro drivers. Despite being sent several meters in the air. And in fact, if you go to his Twitter profile, he retweeted the video. So yeah, of himself being sent in the air. And the HPDs had a fantastic race. In the end, the winner was Dean Moll, who was able to squeak by a massive wreck with a few laps to go and bring the car home with 2 seconds over second place and bringing home the title, which I think brings with it, I think, a full set of Continental tires and other stuff, which I will tell you in a second, because the prize was very, very big, you know. For
Yeah, I mean, I used to do karting as well, and a set of tires is mind-bogglingly expensive. I mean, that was kart tires, and they were like 130 quid for a set of tires, and we're like 8 years old and paying that money. So I imagine these Continental tires will be worth a few hundred quid. So you should be very pleased that he's got some.
Okay, here we go with the. I think I found it. Uh, Basically, the series champion will get Continental tire set, a Continental tire prize pack, which I have no idea what is in that. $100 gift card for a I think a clothing store. Full credentialing for any IMSA or World Challenge race of your choice, and an autographed picture of the legendary driver Jeff Seagal. So, I mean, not a bad prize, you know. It has been a long season, but absolutely worth it.
Yeah, some mad formats presented by that championship. We really have never broadcast anything like it on Apex Racing TV. I don't know if they're going to come up with something similar next season. I think they'll continue doing some races like that. Of course, do check out Dinners with Races. They did a superb, was it e-racing video, which had some, which was like an alternative iRacing, and it came with all the awful stuff from real life motorsport. Like you had to pay if you crashed your car, and you got slaughtered by your team mechanics if you did something. And that's a very funny video. Check that out. It's got tens of thousands of views on it, and they also got a very successful podcast, of course. So mega recommend it, and hopefully we can broadcast something like that in the future. Thanks for bringing that up, Marco, because you've totally
Oh,
messed up my
one final
schedule.
thing. Don't worry. One final thing is that at the same time that we were doing the Dinner with Racers finale, we had some big competition because we had the Pro Series finale for the NASCAR iRacing Pro Series, no? Basically to qualify for the Peak Antifreeze World Championship, and we beat them. We had more viewers than the NASCAR Pro Series season finale on the iRacing Esports Network. So the people knew where the quality racing was.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was about to say, oh, it was just oval stuff, that NASCAR stuff, but obviously you were doing ovals as well. But in
Yeah.
proper oval cars, the Legend and the HPD as
And
well.
turning
So
right, might I add.
yeah,
So
exactly, yeah, and not in America. So proper old school racing, proper banking, with that.
yeah.
What it is, 120 degrees of banking or some madness. Yeah, it's insane circuit, that monster circuit. Should go there more. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Marco, because you totally messed up my schedule, and I don't know how I'm going to edit this to sound good. Of course, anyone at home, I spent hours upon hours editing this, so to make it sound respectable. And of course, we just copy up a script. All of this is a script, and Marco has just completely gone off it. Unacceptable. In terms of Apex Racing TV and Apex Racing League, in terms of Apex Racing TV, we've got a new championship coming, which I am trying to find what it is called. It is the World Racing League, which is an MX5 series. No, it is a Porsche GT3 Cup car, Audi RS3, the TCR car, Mustang FR 500, and the MX5 car as well. So 4 classes. It's an American series. I think starts at 2 o'clock in the morning, weekly from the end of January to the end of June. So a long season. In fact, every other week this series will be. I don't know if you've had too much look at the details. We don't have too many details at the moment, Marco, but anything with those cars is looks very promising.
I mean, we're talking about not a lot of cities having the Mustang, but now we have two of them. And of course, you were right about the MX-5 because it is coming. We are still in the process of finalizing the details, but a new MX-5 series will come on our screens very, very soon.
Yeah, will be awesome that. And yeah, so check out that series. I'm sure signups will be open there to be seen. I'm sure we'll share the sign up link on our Facebook page or any other social media platforms as well. In terms of Apex Racing League, no. Also, in terms of Apex Racing TV, we've also got the Karting World Championship, and I do not know any information
It's
on
the
this league.
MX-5 series.
It is MX-5, yeah. So,
Despite
yeah.
the name, it is MX-5. I was very excited. I'm still very excited because I know we love some MX-5 racing. It's been, I think, one of the most broadcasted cars in the history of our channel. When I first read karting, are we broadcasting another simulator, another platform? Because last thing I knew, the only kart we have seen in iRacing is a teaser shot of a kart tire many years ago,
Oh, yeah. Jeez. I mean, I
and
wasn't even around back then.
it remained there. So yeah, but yeah, it's going to be MX-5s. We are waiting on the details, but we will let you know very, 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 very soon. Another series on the horizon. I don't know if we talked about it, but AOSC, which we cannot say the full name unfortunately, will be.
Honestly, the FBI will knock on our doors if we dare say what that stands for. So we're not taking any risks.
It's coming up very soon, and I think Sam, you will be at the forefront of the commentary duties for the first season.
Yes, I will be. I got my uni timetable the other day, and I was thinking, please don't be Friday. Please don't be Friday. It wasn't Friday instead. I can commentate on that. Sponsored by Acuta. So it's the Acuta AOSC Super Season. And we will just never mention what AOSC stands for the entire season. Will be simple enough, I'm sure. Will be a 6-month series every other week, obviously in the new V8 supercar and Apex Racing TV are.
In the new V8 SC.
Oh, so yeah.
No, no, because they are not called V8 anymore. So in the new
Well, just yeah, okay,
SC,
supercars.
in the new SC, because
Okay. Honestly, that I can hear them knocking on the door right now.
How
I'm
many
certain
times
they'll
will
be.
you say supercars in the broadcast? I can already
Oh
imagine at
dear.
least 5 times per broadcast.
I mean, I'll have to have like a swear jar of some kind. I don't know. So the new SC cars will be used, of course. It looks like a really good calendar, and will be coming to you in the middle of January, I believe. So check out on that. I'm not sure if there'll be any sign-ups available. If there is, we'll let you know. I'm sure they'll be filled up very quickly. It's going to be absolutely bumper packed. So we really recommend watching it. And in terms of ARL, not too many announcements. I would just say keep your eyes out on us announcing any events. If you want to, tag along to the Apex Racing League Discords, I might put like a link in the description. I guess that's what I should do, and you might see an announcement coming up in the next few days about an event that we will host. So I seriously recommend checking that out. So our third series, what was supposed to be our third series, but it turns out to be our fourth series that we will cover, will be the Apex Racing League Touring Car Championship. This time from Monza, and anyone who saw the broadcast, I'm sure you saw myself being glued to the mid pack. I mean, I don't think I ever uttered away from like 20th position for the entire time. I got 27th, 15th, and 16th, which isn't too bad. Out of 42 cars for my debut. I'll take that. But it was much more entertaining up front because in race one, Jack Cedric got pole position and just stormed away from the rest of the field. Everyone else decided to fight themselves. So Swidovic finished in second place and Sven Glatzel in third place. All three of them, of course, getting through to the showdown. Swidovic had 4 race wins, so only finished like 16th place in the normal season, only top 10 getting to the showdown, but he got 4 race wins, which meant he got one of the showdown places. And so if he wins this season, I swear it would be pretty insane. In race 2, Nick Foggy beat Matt Bunn. Terrific result for Matt Bunn. The field was quite spread out in the lead. Nick Foggy won. Matt Bunn second. Jack Ashton in third. Foggy had a bit of a mare in race 1, but came back well in race 2 after starting quite far up. Also, Alex Simpson had an almighty crash going straight across the entry to turn 1 and launched over a curb and took out Dan Kraft, I think. I'll check that one out. About midway through race 2 was a huge impact. And it is remarkable how that doesn't happen more in real life. In race 3, Sven Glatzel won out. He overtook Ash Sutton. Apologies, Ash. He overtook Sutton on the last lap when Sutton ran wide at turn 1, and Sutton pretty much couldn't quite launch back and attack. It came down to like half a tenth, but Glatzel won. Sutton in second place, and it was Swidovic who got his second podium of the day, the only guy to get 2 podiums in the evening. Also had a bit of a dire race too, but I mean, still, he's going to be quite far up in the championship. It was, of course, Monza, Marco, and I can pretty much paint a picture for you. It was just trains. I think in each race, we had 20 car plus trains in all of them. It was remarkable to see the TCR car, which isn't massive slipstream, pretty heavy slipstream, but it's not ridiculously OP. But yeah, just 20 car chains. It was quite something to watch externally and quite something to watch from the cockpit.
I mean, I think it was a far cry from your last appearance before this in BSRT. Sorry, in Thursday night competitions, because last time you raced, it was when you won the title, no?
Of course, yes.
So yeah, I mean, they should have. I think they should have made a bigger deal of you being there and giving you the honorary number 1 to stick on your car, because it was the winter series, right? So it was basically.
Well, I mean, we're not BSR anymore, though.
No, exactly. I mean, but spiritually, the spiritual successor to those series, no?
The thing is, my attitude is that I'm the last ever BSR Winter Series champion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will forever. I can say we're on my 80th birthday. Oh yeah, I'm still the reigning champion of the BSR Winter Series because hopefully BSR won't ever host another one. Yeah, I will have that in my quill for the rest of my life at least.
So how was it? Because I mean, being launched in the series, and we know how competitive and big the fields are, and of course, I think you picked, I would say, one of the most difficult tracks to debut. Because of course, like you were saying, it was a massive traffic jam, and if you made a mistake, you could lose 5, 6, 7 spots straight away.
Yeah, it was tough out there. I mean, to be fair, I don't want to, make it sound too difficult for myself because I think Monza is one of the easiest circuits on iRacing, particularly when you got ABS, because all of Monza is just stopping for corners, turning around a chicane, and then putting the foot back onto the throttle, which even myself can do. So it was probably one of the better circuits in terms of pace to join, but it was so narrow through the chicanes. I mean, I don't think you can really appreciate it from the broadcast quite how tight each chicane is every single time, and every time you go side by side, particularly into the second chicane, because pretty much I learned through the 3 races that you wanted to be on the outside into the second chicane. I mean, even if you were alongside, you wanted to be on the outside so that you had the inside for the second part because it got so narrow on the exit that you just were inevitably going to understeer into your rival, push them off the circuit, and yeah, be gone with them. So was extremely challenging out there in terms of the racecraft. But the rest of the drivers did a very good job. It's remarkable the clean racing in the series. We have a few moments where it maybe drops standards, but was very impressive out there. And of course, now we have a big break until the next round of the championship, which will be Spa, so another classic circuit to visit. And then, of course, we'll have Belle Isle and then Daytona to round off the season. So I think, Marco, it's a pretty interesting way. 3 final rounds, which are totally different to one another.
Beautiful track selection, I should say. Um, I'm just thinking very, very quickly when I don't know if this season the Skip Barber or the Formula 3 will visit Monza, but I'm already thinking about the broken suspensions and front wings on those damn chicanes at Monza, which I hate with a passion. I mean, the new chicane at Lime Rock um, destroyed already. I mean, if you took the chicane the wrong way, with the Skippy, the tires would be somewhat okay, but you were smashing the front wing. But with the F3, if you hit the curves the wrong way, you would lose the tire. Like, suspension is gone. So I can only imagine if we visit there. Going back to ARLTCR Winter Series, perfect way to end the season with these 3 tracks you just said. Daytona, of course, it's a classic. Hopefully, it will be, race 3 will be at night, so to a fitting end with fireworks on the track and off the track to the season. But in the end, I can say what I say every time we talk about this series. So the racing, you are right, is great. Driving standards are more or less very good, and the numbers are still pretty big, despite being towards the end of the season and in the showdown. So great idea to have the winter break now to recharge the batteries and come back. I think for the final 3 rounds, and then of course I think, if I'm not mistaken, the series will switch to the traditional big season that we used to have in the past from February/March until the end of the year, basically, no?
Yeah, of course, we'll go back to the Kia as well, because that is where touring car racing lies on
To
iRacing.
the
I'm just getting up.
Jettas, we need the Jettas. Front wheel drive,
Yes,
clean cars, clean diesel, new tire model. I mean, what more can you want?
exactly. The damage model. I'm sure the Jetta will be the
Ah,
first one with the damage model,
I
seeing that
accidentally
it's
refreshed my iRacing forum page, and now I lost the release notes for this season. Too
I.
bad.
So in terms of points, then in ARLTC, oh geez, how can I not find this? Here we go. Jack Sedgwick is leading the way. He already had a few bonus points going into the season, into the showdown. McFarlane in second place, Baker in third, Sawidowicz gained 7 places. So I was saying earlier on, I think he was 16th in the normal season, and he's up into 4th now in the showdown. I mean, he could genuinely win his 6th title, and if he could do that, would be unreal. George Simmons in 5th, Cooper 6th, Sutton, Kraft, Wood, and Foggy. So Foggy, who was pretty much at the top, falls down to 10th, only just ahead of Rushworth and Harrod, who round out the 12 pro drivers in the AM standings. We've got Paul Smith now heading the way. He was 6th going into the showdown, up into 1st now. Michael Blake in 2nd there. So McNally. Warmingham has had a few good rounds, actually. Had a good Watkins Glen as well. He gained 5 places up into 4th now. Robert Stevens, Woodhouse, Hedgecock, Van Broek, Nella, Laidler, who I had a couple of good battles with, and Van Ryn, who I also had a couple of good battles with, actually. Those were oh, sorry, apologies. Laidler and Van Ryn aren't in the showdown. It was only the top 10 out of the AM drivers who got in. So Nella currently bottom of those drivers. And of course, the team standings were reset as well because we have the showdown, and pretty much everyone was eligible. Top 5 in the pro zone. So Apex Racing Team still lead. CQR and Sim Sports Racing USA tied in 2nd place. Then it's B Racing and XVR. And in the AM standings, Smile Times Immortal lead the way ahead of Auto Mechnock Hill, Excite Racing, and Boosted Motorsport, and then Boosted Sim Sport out of those teams. So, yeah, that was the ARLTC, and you can catch the next round of the season, the third to final round of the season, at Spa in 3 weeks' time. So finally, we'll talk more about Apex Racing League, and we'll talk about the Apex Racing League American GT Championship. Was a very entertaining race at Montreal. Was a bit of a risk going there, but in race one was really good driving out of the GT and GT3 classes. A lot of action further down the field, but at the front of the field, particularly in the GTE category, was quite comfortable. Jackie Lotzman winning out on his first race of the season. Mark Fletcher finishing in second place, and Cam Dance with his first podium of the season, a very impressive third. It was very close, all behind that. In the GT3 category, Mike Horder overtook Alessandro Dalladone, which was absolutely massive because Horder spent the entirety of both races at Laguna Seca behind Dalladone, and he finally got past Dalladone. It was absolutely incredible to see a few laps into the race. So he took his first win of the season, I believe, ahead of Dalladone. Pisano in third place in that one. By the way, Dalladone, I raced against him at Belle Isle in the Porsche Cup Series earlier on. I said hello to him before the race started. He was saying the one thing he responded with, "Lol, I'm just hoping to get through the race." On the race start, before they even started the first lap,
He
the guy
crashed.
in front of him on the
I know.
on the grid spun into Dalladone, who had absolutely no chance, and
Yeah.
he soldiered round with a broken car, and honestly was so painful to watch. Honestly, I was really excited because Dalladone is, a quick driver. I felt as though maybe I could beat him. He was starting behind me on the grid after not setting a qualifying time, and I was really looking forward to it. I looked at my F3 screen on the first lap, and he was absolutely nowhere to be seen. And he was out of the race, the no fault of his own. That race went a lot better for him. They race one at Montreal. Race two didn't go so well. Race two was the league organizer absolutely messed it up, which is myself. Unfortunately, the GT3 cars started ahead of the GTE cars, which caused a lots of controversy, drivers jumping the starts and stuff. In the end, though, it was Jackie Lotzman who still made his way up through the order. Mark Fletcher finishing second again, and Cam Dance finishing. Apologies, Lotzman in first, Dance in second, and Fletcher in third. So change to second and third. Wasn't an amazing GT race because it got so spread out when they moved through the traffic. The GT three race though was one of the greatest races I've ever seen. One of the most crazy races I've ever seen. About 6 cars fighting for the lead throughout. They kept on making contact with one another. Some incredible defense. Just insane, desperate defense. But it was fantastic to watch and fair on the most part. Pisano won out. I think quadrupled his points tally for the season. Brent Kern finished in second place, and Tristan Martz finishes in third place. Was absolutely insane that GTE event. I'd like to do it just by talking through it, but you just have to watch back last Sunday's event. I mean, Dalladone, I don't think was best pleased. Marco, he had the championship lead going into this round. I believe he still holds it. Sorry, Mike Horder now holds it, but Dalladone not too far back. But that craziness on the for the race two was pretty mad. It's never fantastic as a GTE driver to have to work your way through 20 odd GT3 cars a few laps into a race, especially around somewhere as narrow as Montreal.
Yeah, I know. It's first of all, let me say hi to Alessandro because he's one of our biggest fans. He always listens to the podcast. He told me. Um, he uses it. He listens to us when he goes to bed. So I don't know if it's a good thing because we relax him or a bad thing because we are boring and he uses us to go to sleep. But in any case, he always listens to us every time. So These are very unfortunate things that sometimes happen. Sometimes iRacing doesn't want to be very polite with us league organizers or just when hosting a session. So I have to say that the interface, whilst we are very used to it, and I'm talking about the traditional, the web-based interface, not the beta UI, I cannot stop thinking every time I host a session that is a bit clunky and easy to miss or to not spot something that is wrong when you're launching the session.
I mean, for me, where it went wrong, and it was pretty. So I, for some sorts of reason, did the GTE class first, just because I think I was. Oh, sorry, I did the GTE class first, just because I think I was just doing it in pace order. I don't know why I did it like that, because always do it the other way around. But I clearly just wasn't thinking too much, and did the GTE class first, and then I did the GT3 on top of that. Now, the classes, though, are always put in pace order if you muddle them up. So all the GTEs will always start in front of the GT3s, even if you mess them up. However, clearly on iRacing, there's like an override where if all the GTEs are grouped together and all the GT3s are grouped together, then it overrides it and puts them in the order that you presented them. So I was fully aware of the order I put them in when I launched the session. Then I jumped in. I thought, iRacing hasn't corrected my mistake. So that was kind of the reason why it went down. But there's too many of these stories, Marco, of these grids or these session mistakes, because yeah, as you say, it can be a little bit tricky.
But the drivers will have a little bit of break to mull on their on everything that has happened, and I think they will be coming stronger than ever. Everyone, both the organizers and the drivers, for the final few rounds of the season. But in any case, after this podcast, I will tell you if it happens again, how to correct it on the fly when you are in the session.
Ooh,
But we'll talk about it after, I think, because I think 2 rounds left in the season, if I'm not mistaken, no? So
three
or 3 rounds,
but
okay. So
they're
because
really good
this
rounds.
is 7, because this is 7, not 6. I was used to
Yes,
the British GT.
yeah,
3 rounds, which means 6 races. It's still a long way to go for the drivers. A lot of things can happen, and the tracks that we're coming on next are very interesting. And I'm quite sure, again, after the new year comes, everyone will be long has put this in the past and focused on the, because from everything I can read and everything, of course, watching the races, it's a very entertaining and fun series for the drivers. So yeah, too bad what happened, but let's look at the future.
definitely. I mean, it's one of the few series that I think it's pretty much the only series where I almost feel tired after commentating on it. Certainly on Sunday, race 2 in the GT3 category was one of the most tiring broadcast thing I've ever done, and that kind of seems to be most weeks. It's incredibly intense action with the reverse grids going on. Of course, next up is Watkins Glen on the calendar, and then we'll have the Florida rounds. We'll have Sebring and Daytona road course, of course, to round out the championship. But of course, if you fancy like taking part in that series, then I think we'll probably reopen. Well, I mean, entries have pretty much been open for the majority of the season. Hopefully, we'll get a few new drivers on the grid. I mean, 40 odd drivers anyway, which is pretty epic. So, very good competition. So, if you fancy like taking part in GTE cars, but not the BMW because we didn't have enough space, or any of the GT3 cars, which, kind of the 4 main ones, then certainly do sign up via our Facebook page. I'm sure there's a link in there, or if you're part of the Apex Racing League Discord, which I'll put a link in the description for, you can also find sign up details on there. Next week, I mean, really does turn down now the league, so it's pretty much everyone on a break, and no surprise why. We'll have a couple of weeks pretty much with New Year's as well coming up, so a few states taking a 2-week break, of course. So we're going to be able to concentrate on official series, of course, next week. So what official series are you looking forward to covering next week?
Well, the back-to-back races in Friday and Saturday for IndyCar and Formula 3.5 are going to be absolutely crazy. The IndyCar on Friday night at 10 GMT, 20 GMT to be precise. They will race at a traditional European track, which I don't visit very often, but it's absolutely on point for these cars, Spa-Francorchamps. So action will be great. Again, most of the drivers, I think, on iRacing are on holiday in those days, so we are expecting some big participation, especially from some maybe, old F1 specialists or drivers of other series that want to try their hand at the IR18 around Spa, a track that everyone loves and think almost everyone owns on iRacing. And like we said, the next day at 10 GMT, 22 GMT. So yeah. Oh dear, I always get mixed up with these. So the IndyCar is at 8 GMT, 20 GMT, and 3.5 is at 22 GMT. Okay, this time I got it right. Like we said, we will be at Montreal, so crazy slipstreaming and lot of straights to really see these drivers put the power down on these beautiful 3.5 cars. So I think that will be. I think the broadcast of the IMSA series is a big question mark for obvious reasons, of course, being Christmas Eve in Australia when that goes on. But we will have something to talk about regardless. And Sam, maybe being that, if I'm not mistaken, the next one will be the last episode before New Year's Day. We could have our very own end of the year roundup on the things we liked about iRacing or the series we covered, the things we didn't like, our favorite moment, and so on and so forth. Because it has been a year full of interesting moments both on the track and off the track.
Absolutely. I mean, my YouTube feed is at this time of year is just filled of top 10 highlights of this. Of course, anyone who subscribed to the F1 channel, you got best overtakes, best team radios, and all of that stuff. Which would be amazing if we could just go back on all the best. We need to note down stuff so we can look back on it at the end of the year and we'll make a nice compilation video. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that this year. But you're absolutely right, Mark. It'd be great to have a little bit of a look back at all our championships, any memorable races of ours, and yeah, will be very good to watch. And of course, there's not too many series apart from the official series to cover, so no, certainly a fantastic opportunity to do that. I don't think we're going to do an end of decades one. I mean, you've been here, Marco, for a year and a half, or more than a year and a half to be fair now, and I've been here for 2 years and a half, so not quite enough knowledge with that. But no, certainly a year review would be fantastic to complete. So, like we were saying, not too much stuff next week on Apex Racing TV, but do check out the official series. We will still be covering a few rounds of that. Also, check out the iRacing Esports Network, where we will be broadcasting the Formula 3.5 Championship, of course, next Saturday. And yeah, just make sure that you subscribe to both channels. And if you've liked this podcast, we would mega appreciate it if you could leave a like for it. But from me and from Marco, we'll say goodbye. You've been listening to the Apex Racing TV Weekly Roundup podcast. Make sure to keep up with all our series via YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also check out the iRacing Esports Network, where we broadcast several days a week. See you next week for another podcast.